he walked into the café, drenched in rain, and begged a stranger to pretend to be his wife, just to save his dying daughter's birthday. The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. Inside a quiet corner cafe, Emma sat alone, staring into her untouched cup of coffee, the steam long gone. Just like the warmth in her life, she wasn't supposed to be here. She wasn't supposed to feel this lost. But ever since she left the city, and the man who shattered her world, she had been drifting from one small town to another, searching for silence. Or maybe herself? The door chimed softly, and a tall man rushed in, soaked from the storm. His clothes clung to him. His eyes, tired yet kind, scanned the cafe desperately, as if looking for something he'd lost. Or someone. He spotted the only empty chair across from her. "Excuse me," he said, breathless. "Is this seat taken?" Emma hesitated. "No, go ahead." As he sat, she noticed the tremor in his hands. He wasn't just cold, he was nervous. A moment passed. Then another. "Finally," he whispered almost to himself, "I can't believe I'm doing this." Emma looked up. "Doing what?" He met her gaze, and something about his eyes made her forget the rain, the noise, the world. There was grief in them. And fear. "I know this will sound insane," he said, voice trembling, "but could you pretend to be my wife? Just for 1 week." Emma blinked, thinking she'd misheard. "What?" He took a deep breath, words spilling out in a rush. "My daughter, she's turning 6 tomorrow. She's been sick for months, and all she wanted for her birthday was to have her parents together again. But her mother," he paused, the word choking in his throat. "She's gone. She left us last year." His voice broke, raw and unguarded. "Please, I don't need you to act perfectly. Just show up. Smile for her, pretend I'll pay you. Anything you want. Just don't let her cry again." Emma stared at him, at this broken father, begging a stranger in a coffee shop. She wanted to say no. She should have said no, but something in his voice, that quiet desperation, cracked something inside her. And without realizing it, Emma whispered, "Okay, I'll do it." The man froze, relief flooding his face. "Thank you," he breathed. "You just saved my little girl's heart." Outside, the rain stopped for the first time in 3 days. The next morning, the sky was still gray, but quieter. Emma stood outside a cozy brick house at the end of Maple Street, clutching her coat. Her breath fogged in the cold air as she questioned every choice that led her here. She was about to pretend to be someone's wife. For 1 week. For a little girl she'd never met. The door opened before she could knock. The same man from the cafe, Daniel, stood there, now in a clean shirt, his hair still damp from the shower. He smiled nervously. "You came," he said softly, as if he still couldn't believe it. Emma nodded. "You said she's turning 6? Oh?" Daniel's lips trembled. He glanced at Emma. Emma's chest tightened. She didn't know what to say, so she did the only thing she could. She knelt down, smiled, and opened her arms. "Hey, sweetheart," she said softly. "Happy almost birthday." The girl, Lily, ran to her like she'd been waiting forever. Emma held her, feeling that fragile little heartbeat against her chest. Something inside her melted. Later, while Lily colored pictures on the rug, Daniel whispered to Emma in the kitchen, "I told her you went away for work. That you missed her every day. Please don't tell her otherwise. She believes you're her mom." Emma nodded slowly, guilt and empathy swirling inside her. It was supposed to be pretend, just acting, but the way Lily looked at her. It didn't feel like a lie. "Why me?" she finally asked. "Why pick a stranger?" Daniel exhaled, eyes heavy with pain. "Because you looked kind," he said. "And I didn't have anyone else." Silence fell, broken only by Lily's laughter in the next room. For a moment, Emma forgot her own heartbreak, her past, her loneliness. For the first time in a long time. Someone needed her, and she couldn't help but wonder. Maybe fate didn't bring her here by accident. By the 3rd day, Emma almost forgot she was pretending. The house had begun to feel alive. Every wall, every frame, whispered stories of a family that once was and a love that had vanished too soon. Lily was the heart of it all. She'd drag Emma to the kitchen every morning, giggling as she poured milk and cereal, spilling half of it on the counter. And Daniel, he'd watch from the doorway, a faint smile ghosting his tired face, the kind of smile that came from both joy and pain. That morning, Lily had insisted Emma wear one of her mother's old aprons. "It's Mommy's favorite," she said. "Daddy said you used to wear it when we made pancakes?" Emma froze for a second. The apron smelled faintly of lavender and loss. She tied it around her waist anyway. When Daniel walked in, his breath caught. For a moment, he wasn't looking at Emma, but at a memory. She saw it in his eyes, that flash of recognition followed by quiet heartbreak. "Does this feel too strange?" Emma asked softly. He shook his head, forcing a smile. "No, it's nice." She's smiling again. That's what matters. But later, when Lily was napping, Emma wandered into the living room. A photo frame sat on the piano, Daniel, a woman, and a tiny Lily between them. The woman had the same eyes as Emma. That resemblance, it explained everything. Maybe that's why he had chosen her. Because she looked like the woman he lost. She turned when she heard him behind her. "You miss her," Emma said quietly. Daniel's jaw tightened. "She was everything," he whispered. "She fought so hard. But cancer doesn't care who it takes." Emma swallowed hard, looking at the little girl sleeping on the couch. "She got it from her mother, didn't she?" He nodded slowly. "We don't talk about it around her. She thinks she's just sick from the weather." A silence heavy with grief filled the room. Emma reached out, touching his hand gently, cautiously. "I'm sorry," she said. For a second, he didn't move. Then his fingers brushed hers like a wordless thank you. That night, when Emma tucked Lily into bed, the little girl whispered sleepily, "Mommy, will you stay forever this time?" Emma froze. Her throat tightened. She wanted to tell her the truth, that she wasn't her mother, that this was just a lie wrapped in kindness. But instead, she kissed her forehead and whispered, "Sleep tight, my angel." And as she turned off the lights, a single thought echoed in her heart. What happens when the week ends? By the fourth day, Emma no longer had to remind herself to smile. It came naturally now, especially when Lily laughed. That little girl had a way of filling even the quietest corners of the house with sunlight. The mornings began with music. Lily would dance in her pajamas, clutching her stuffed bunny, while Emma cooked breakfast. And Daniel, always watching from the kitchen doorway, would sometimes hum along, like he'd forgotten how to be sad for a moment. It was supposed to be pretend, but every shared glance, every accidental brush of hands, was starting to feel dangerously real. That evening, Emma was helping Daniel fix a string of lights for Lily's birthday. The rain had stopped outside, and through the window, the sky glowed gold, like the world itself wanted to heal. Daniel climbed a small ladder, his shirt sleeves rolled up. Emma held the cord for him, laughing when he almost tripped. "You're terrible at this," she teased. "I'm a single dad, not an electrician," he said, grinning. It was the first time she'd seen him truly smile, a real, effortless one. And for a fleeting moment, Emma forgot who she was pretending to be. When he finally climbed down, she noticed a streak of dust on his cheek. Without thinking, she reached up and brushed it away. Their eyes met, and time froze. The air between them shifted. He didn't move. Neither did she. It was the kind of silence that carried more meaning than words ever could. "I keep forgetting you're not," Daniel whispered, but his voice trailed off. "Not her," Emma finished quietly. He nodded, guilt flickering in his eyes. "I'm sorry. It's just sometimes when you smile like that, it feels like she's still here." Emma swallowed hard. "I don't mind," she said softly. "Maybe she is in some way?" For a long moment, they just stood there, two broken souls holding on to borrowed warmth. Later that night, Emma couldn't sleep. She sat by Lily's bedside, watching her little chest rise and fall. The girl's hand clutched Emma's finger even in her dreams. Daniel appeared at the doorway, whispering, "Thank you for everything." Emma turned to him, tears glimmering in her eyes. "Don't thank me," she said. "I'm not the one saving her. She's saving me." He smiled faintly as if he understood exactly what she meant. Outside, thunder rumbled faintly in the distance, a reminder that storms never last forever. But inside that small house, something had changed. Pretending had stopped being an act. It had become a heartbeat. The house was glowing. Balloons brushed against the ceiling. Ribbons shimmered in soft pastel colors, and the faint smell of vanilla cake filled the air. For the first time in months, laughter danced through the walls of Daniel's home. It was Lily's 6th birthday, and she looked like a dream, wearing a pink dress, a tiny paper crown tilted on her fragile head, her eyes shining brighter than any candle on the cake. "Mommy, Daddy, come here," she called out, her small voice full of joy. Emma and Daniel exchanged a quick glance, then walked hand in hand toward her. The sound of Mommy still hit Emma's chest like a wave. She wasn't used to it, but she couldn't bring herself to correct it either. They stood by Lily as she closed her eyes to make a wish. "What did you wish for, sweetheart?" Emma asked gently. Lily smiled, dimples deepening. "I can't tell you," she whispered, "or it won't come true." But the way she looked between them, holding both their hands, said it all. She wished for them, her family, to stay together forever. The party was small. Just the three of them. Emma sang, Daniel laughed, and Lily clapped her tiny hands in delight. For a few hours, there was no sickness, no sadness, no pretending. Just love, pure and fragile. After the cake, Lily wanted to dance. Daniel lifted her in his arms as Emma hummed softly, swaying with them under the fairy lights. It was the kind of scene that belonged in another lifetime, one where none of them had lost so much. But as the night deepened, reality returned like a quiet ache. Lily grew tired, her energy fading fast. She leaned against Emma, whispering, "Mommy, promise me something." Emma brushed her hair tenderly. "Anything, my love." "When I get better," Lily said, "can we all go to the beach together? You, me, and Daddy, just us?" Emma's throat tightened. She forced a smile through the tears she hid. "Of course," she whispered. "We'll go wherever you want." Lily nodded sleepily, drifting off in Emma's arms. Daniel stood nearby, his eyes glassy. She hasn't smiled like that since. He began, but his voice cracked. Emma reached for his hand. "Then we'll keep her smiling." But deep down, both of them knew it wasn't that simple. Lily's doctor had called earlier that week. Her condition was worsening, and tomorrow Emma would have to leave. The week was almost over. As midnight passed, the candles flickered out. Emma looked around at the little decorations, the laughter that still echoed faintly in her heart, and wondered how she could walk away from this. How do you say goodbye to a life that was never yours, but felt like home? The next morning, the house felt heavier. No music, no laughter, only the soft hum of the rain outside. Emma stood by the window, suitcase packed beside her. The deal was simple, 1 week. But nothing about this week had been simple. Lily was still asleep, curled up beneath her favorite pink blanket. Her breathing was faint, slower than usual. Daniel stood by her bed, worry carved deep into his face. "The doctor called again," he said quietly. "They want to run more tests." "But she's too weak." Emma's heart clenched. "I thought she was getting better." He shook his head slowly. "So did I." Silence lingered between them, the kind that feels like grief wrapped in air. Emma looked at Lily's tiny hand resting on the blanket. She remembered the laughter, the dancing, the birthday candles, the promise she'd made. "I can't leave her like this," Emma whispered. Daniel looked up sharply. "But you said—" "I know what I said," she cut in, tears rising. "But look at her, Daniel. She needs me. She thinks I'm her mother. You think I can just walk away?" He ran a hand through his hair, frustration and heartbreak mixing in his voice. "She's not your daughter, Emma. You don't have to carry this." The words hit her hard, but not because they were cruel, because they were true, and yet the truth didn't stop the ache. Emma turned to him, voice trembling. "She may not be mine by blood, but she's mine by love. You can't tell me that doesn't count." Daniel's lips parted, but no words came. The storm outside grew stronger, wind rattling the window. Somewhere in the silence between thunder, a small voice broke through. "Mommy?" Both turned. Lily was awake, her face pale, her little hand reaching out weakly. Emma rushed to her side. "Mommy, are you leaving?" Emma froze, her chest tightening painfully. She knelt beside her, brushing her thumb across Lily's cheek. "I was going to... but not now, baby. I'm right here." Lily smiled faintly. "Good, because I made a wish last night. I wished you'd stay forever." Tears filled Emma's eyes. She couldn't speak. Daniel knelt beside them, his voice breaking. "We'll take her to the hospital. Maybe there's still a chance." But Lily just shook her head weakly. "No doctors today. Just stay, please." So they stayed. Hours passed. The rain softened. The world seemed to hold its breath. Emma sat by Lily's bed, humming softly, the same lullaby Daniel said her real mother used to sing. Daniel watched them from the doorway, realization dawning in his eyes. Maybe Emma wasn't here to replace anyone. Maybe she was sent to heal what was left behind. As the night deepened, Lily's hand rested in Emma's palm, small, fragile, trusting. And in that quiet room, Emma whispered a prayer she hadn't spoken in years. Please, God, don't take her yet. Not tonight. The rain stopped sometime after midnight, but Emma didn't notice. She sat beside Lily's bed, fingers wrapped around that tiny, trembling hand, humming the same lullaby again and again, as if the sound itself could keep the little girl tethered to the world. Daniel hadn't left the doorway. His eyes were red, his voice gone silent. He'd fought battles against bills, hospitals, loneliness, but nothing compared to this quiet helplessness. Emma's voice was breaking now. Come on, sweetheart. You're my brave girl, remember? Lily's eyelids fluttered, her breathing shallow. Mommy, she whispered. Will it hurt when I go to sleep forever? The question shattered something inside Emma. She pulled the girl into her arms, trembling. No, baby, it won't hurt. You'll just, dream of the beach we promised. A tear slid down Lily's cheek. Will you be there? Emma's voice cracked. Always. Daniel turned away, his hand gripping the wall, fighting the sobs rising in his chest. The storm outside had ended, but inside that house, another one raged quietly in their hearts. Minutes passed. Then something changed. Lily's breathing steadied just a little. Her tiny fingers twitched against Emma's palm. Daniel rushed closer, eyes wide. Her color, it's coming back. Emma blinked through tears, afraid to hope. Lily? The little girl stirred, opening her eyes faintly. See, Mommy? She whispered. God heard you. Emma froze, her throat tightening, tears spilling freely now. She looked up, her voice barely a breath. He did? Daniel knelt beside them, tears streaking his face. He reached out, resting a hand on Emma's shoulder. You prayed for her, he said softly. And she listened to you. Not the doctors, you... Emma shook her head, overwhelmed. No, Daniel. It's her strength. She's stronger than all of us. But Daniel didn't look away. He looked at Emma like a man seeing light for the first time after years in the dark. Later that night, when Lily finally drifted into a peaceful sleep, Daniel brought Emma a blanket. She was still sitting by the bed, refusing to move. You don't have to stay here all night, he murmured. Emma smiled faintly. I want to... He hesitated, then sat beside her. Their shoulders brushed. For the first time, neither pulled away. She's going to be okay, he whispered. I can feel it. Emma nodded, eyes still glistening. So can I. Outside, the clouds parted, moonlight spilling softly through the window, falling over the three of them. It was quiet now, peaceful, and for a moment, Emma dared to believe that maybe, just maybe, love itself was a kind of miracle, because sometimes miracles don't roar, they whisper. Sunlight crept softly through the curtains, painting golden lines across the floor. For the first time in weeks, the house didn't wake up to machines or medicine, it woke up to laughter. Lily sat propped up in bed, her cheeks flushed with new color, sketching with crayons. Emma sat beside her, helping her draw a little beach, three stick figures holding hands, beneath a bright yellow sun. That's you, Lily said, pointing at the tall one. And that's Daddy, Emma smiled. And who's the little one? Lily giggled. Me. But you made my hair too short. Daniel leaned against the doorframe, quietly watching. His eyes softened. The exhaustion that once haunted him seemed to fade. Doctor says her vitals look better than expected, he said later, as Emma followed him to the kitchen. He called it unexplained improvement, but I call it faith. Emma smiled faintly. Sometimes faith doesn't explain itself. It just arrives. He looked at her for a long moment. The silence between them filled with everything neither dared to say. You changed this house, he said finally. You brought something back I thought I'd lost forever? Emma's breath caught. Daniel. No, let me say this. His voice trembled, raw and real. I thought I'd buried every piece of hope with her mother. But you made me believe again. In laughter. In family, in love. Emma's eyes shimmered. Don't do that to yourself, she whispered. You're just grateful. That's all this is. He shook his head slowly. It's not gratitude, Emma, it's you. The words hung in the air like a secret neither could take back. Her heart pounded. Part of her wanted to believe him, another part feared it, because every feeling he confessed was one she had begun to feel too. But before either could say more, Lily's voice rang from the other room. Mommy, Daddy! Come see, I finished it. They hurried back to find her holding the drawing, a messy, colorful sketch of the three of them on the beach. The waves were big and blue, and above their heads, she had written in shaky letters, "Together forever." Emma's throat tightened. She knelt, hugging Lily close. You made it perfect, she whispered. That night after Lily fell asleep, Emma sat by the window, the same window she'd once planned to leave through. Daniel joined her, 2 mugs of tea in his hands. You were supposed to go a day ago, he said quietly. I know, she whispered. So why didn't you? Emma looked at him, her voice barely audible. Because when I looked at her, I didn't see a stranger's child anymore. I saw mine. Daniel's eyes glistened. And when I look at you, I don't see a stranger anymore either. For a long time, neither moved. The only sound was the ticking clock, and 2 hearts learning how to beat again. The next morning was too quiet. No laughter, no songs, only the soft ticking of the old clock on the wall. Something about the air felt heavy, like it knew what was coming. Emma stood in the kitchen, staring at a folded envelope she'd been hiding for days. Her hands trembled as she touched it. It was addressed to the Mapletown Hospital. Her name was printed neatly in the corner, Emma Lewis, and underneath, the words former pediatric nurse. Daniel entered quietly, noticing her expression. What's that? She froze. The lie she'd been living was about to collapse. It's something I should have told you earlier, she said, her voice barely steady. Daniel frowned. Emma? She took a deep breath. A year ago, I worked at a children's hospital. I took care of a little girl. Her name was Sarah. She had the same illness Lily has. Her eyes glistened. I got close to her. Too close. I watched her fade away while her parents stopped visiting. I tried to save her, Daniel, but she died in my arms. Daniel's face softened, confusion, pity, heartbreak mixing together. I left my job the next day, she continued, her voice breaking. I ran from that city, from that pain. I told myself I'd never care for another child again, because losing her nearly destroyed me. Tears streamed down her cheeks now. And then I met Lily, and suddenly every wall I'd built disappeared. Daniel stepped closer, his voice trembling. Emma, you should have told me. I couldn't, she interrupted. Because this us was supposed to be pretend. But I started feeling things I wasn't supposed to. For you, for her. She turned away, choking on the words. I'm scared, Daniel. Because I can't lose her too. I won't survive it again. Daniel reached out, gently taking her hand. Emma, you're not alone this time. She shook her head, tears spilling. You don't understand. I wasn't meant to stay. You only asked me to pretend. He moved closer, his voice raw with emotion. Then let me ask again, stay. Not as her pretend mother, but as the woman who brought life back into our home? Emma looked up at him, torn between hope and fear. I can't promise forever, she whispered. He cupped her face tenderly. Then promise today. Before she could answer, a sudden crash echoed from Lily's room. Both froze, panic striking like lightning. They ran inside. Lily was lying on the floor, her crayon still in her hand, her little body trembling. Lily, Daniel shouted, rushing to her. Emma fell to her knees, checking her pulse, tears flooding her eyes. She's burning up. Daniel, call the hospital now. He grabbed the phone, his voice shaking. Please, hurry. It's my daughter. She's not breathing right. Emma cradled Lily's fragile body in her arms, whispering through tears. Stay with me, baby, please. You promised we'd go to the beach. The ambulance siren wailed in the distance, a sound that tore through the night like a scream. Daniel's hands trembled as he held the door open, and Emma whispered the only words her heart could form. Don't take her, God. Not her too. The paramedics rushed in, and in the chaos, Daniel saw something he'd never forget. Emma's face, broken, terrified, and full of love. Because this wasn't pretend anymore? This was everything. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and heartbreak. Emma sat in the waiting area, her hands covered in Lily's tiny fingerprints, still warm, still clinging to life. Daniel paced back and forth, whispering prayers under his breath, his eyes hollow from fear. "She's strong," Emma said softly. "She's stronger than both of us." Daniel nodded, but his voice was barely a whisper. "She has to be." Hours passed. The night outside turned into morning, yet time inside the hospital refused to move. Every second felt like an eternity. Finally, the doctor stepped out. His eyes said everything before his lips even parted. "She's stable," he said gently. "But she's very weak." "She asked to see you both." Emma exhaled a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. They rushed inside. Lily lay in the hospital bed, pale but smiling faintly. Her little hands clutched the same drawing she'd made. The three of them on the beach. "Hey, Mommy," she whispered. "I told you I'd be okay." Emma knelt beside her, brushing her hair back, tears slipping silently. "You scared us," she whispered with a trembling smile. "Don't do that again," Lily giggled weakly. "Promise." Then she looked at both of them and said, "Can we go now?" Emma frowned softly. "Go where, sweetheart?" "To the beach," Lily said, her voice dreamy. "You promised." Daniel's throat tightened. He looked at Emma, and she understood. A week later, when Lily was strong enough to travel, Daniel drove them to the coast. The sea stretched endlessly, waves glittering beneath the sunlight. Lily squealed with joy, her small feet sinking into the sand as Emma held her hand. Daniel watched them, the wind tugging at his hair, a smile breaking through the pain that had once lived in his eyes. They built sandcastles, chased waves, and laughed, real laughter, the kind that heals. And when Lily got tired, Emma sat beside her, holding her close. "Mommy," Lily whispered, "this is the best birthday ever." Emma's voice broke softly. "It's not your birthday, baby." Lily smiled faintly. "It feels like it." As the sun dipped low, Emma looked toward Daniel. He walked closer, kneeling beside them. "She's asleep," Emma whispered. Daniel nodded, eyes glistening. "She's peaceful." They sat there together, the ocean before them, the sky painted gold. Daniel took Emma's hand, whispering, "She was never supposed to be part of your story. But maybe you were always meant to be part of ours." Emma's tears shimmered in the dying light. "Maybe we saved each other." The waves crashed softly, carrying away everything, the pain, the lies, the pretending. What remained was something purer, love born from loss, faith born from heartbreak, and a family born not from blood, but from the courage to care again. As the sun set, Emma whispered to the sleeping child in her arms, "We made it to the beach, my love, just like you dreamed." And Daniel, his voice trembling, added, "Together forever." The tide rolled in quietly, washing away their footprints, but not the story of how one week became a lifetime.